and welcome. Tonight, National Security Council reiterates stance that appropriate action will be taken on appeal court's decision to discharge IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu, directs intensive investigation into illegal activities in the nation's oil sector. Students heave a sigh of relief as the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, suspends its 8-month strike conditionally. Lecturers set to resume work Monday, October 17th. River State Governor Nyesom Wike raises fresh allegations of corruption against National Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Iyorchia Ayu, who in turn denies collecting monies for himself. On Business News tonight, IMF cuts Sub-Saharan Africa's 2022 GDP growth forecast to 3.6%, says Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia, Malawi and Zimbabwe may need to raise interest rate faster for economic stability.
And on sports news tonight, Nigeria's Flamingos bounced back from defeat at the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup with a 4-0 hammering of New Zealand.
And in international news from London, a new report suggests Vladimir Putin could be open to negotiations and withdrawing some troops from Ukraine.
We begin with the reaction of the National Security Council to yesterday's court judgment on the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mr. Nnamdi Kanu. The council is maintaining the position of the federal government that the IPOB leader was not acquitted despite the decision of the Court of Appeal. Briefing State House correspondents after the meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. The Minister of Police Affairs, Mr. Mohammed Dingyadi, said the government is considering an appropriate action to take on the matter. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Mozoke, has details of this and other resolutions from the meeting.
There is a little less tension here than the last meeting as members of the National Security Council gather at the council chamber, presided over by the President Muhammadu Buhari. At a joint briefing afterwards by the Minister of Interior, Police Affairs and the Chief of Defence Staff, the group highlights different areas of focus and decisions taken by the Council, including the appeal court verdict on Nnamdi Kanu.
Council was briefed on the state of things on the matter, and it was observed that Kanu was discharged, but he was not acquitted. So government is considering the appropriate action to be taken on the matter, and Nigerians will be notified of the position that will finally be taken on the matter in due course.
The Council also discussed the raging issue of crude oil theft in the country.
We have ordered in the Council an intensive investigation into every aspect of oil production, illegal activities around it, from pipelines to human activities, that is costing Nigeria such a huge loss that we are recording. And that assignment is given to the constitution, the composition of that team is given to the NSA, Office of the NSA, and the SGF.
The rationale by the military to set ablaze the vessel caught last week with illegal crude oil is also explained.
He doesn't have papers, besides that he doesn't even need paper for that anyway, because it is illegal. And he was caught in the act. So the instrument of operation that he had is what was destroyed. So I think it's straightforward. Whether that's the best is a different matter entirely. But did they act in line with the rules of engagement? Yes, they did.
101 terrorist detainees have also been moved to a stronger facility as the council takes a decision to advance prosecution of terrorists.
Council was also briefed that a total of 101 ex-combatants were taken to Operation Safe Corridor and currently undergoing the process of de-radicalization at the center.
In addition to that, we have also agreed on the need to fast track the process of judicial process for prosecution of terrorists, so that it will be an example to other terrorists.
On the dispute between Dangote Cement Factory and the Kogi state government, the council ordered the reopening of the factory.
All issues related to that industry or factory should be resolved in accordance with the law.
And we do hope that the parties involved will respect this agreement and will come to terms with the memorandum of understanding signed by the parties involved.
Threat of insecurity is declining according to the council, and lies returning gradually to normalcy. But the threat of illegal mining remains a thorn in the flesh of the council, and that is the reason why they've asked security agencies to move interaction and nip this in the bud across the country. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the counsel to the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, is asking the federal government to obey the judgment of the Court of Appeal by allowing his client to leave the custody of the Department of State Services. Briefing journalists in Abuja, Ms. Ifeanyi Ejiofor said that based on the judgment of the appellate court, Mr. Kanu cannot be tried again on the same terrorism charges in Nigeria. He asked the government to immediately release Kanu in compliance with the judgment, maintaining that there were no ambiguity in the unanimous decision of the appellate court panel. He also notes that Mr. Kanu's legal team is ready to face the federal government at the apex court. We're staying with court matters. The ruling of the Federal High Court Dutse striking out the money laundering charges brought against former Jigawa State Governor Saminu Turaki does not amount to an acquittal, and this is according to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. In a statement, the EFCC explains that in striking out the case on Thursday, Justice Hassan Dikko based his decision on the absence of the EFCC prosecutor in court, stating that the Commission is at liberty to proceed with the case. However, the Commission says it was represented in court October 12, 2022, but could not present its witness, who was ill, and this was communicated to the court. The EFCC has vowed to return to court to conclude this case, which has lasted 15 years, claiming that most of the reasons for the delay on the trial had been at the instance of the defendant. Mr. Turaki was first arraigned alongside 3 companies before Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court Abuja the 13th of July 2007. The case was transferred to the Federal High Court Dutse 2011 after Mr. Turaki successfully challenged the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court Abuja to entertain the case. He was said to have jumped bail, and from 2011 till 2017, the former governor failed to appear in court until he was rearrested in 2017. The EFCC says since the trial resumed in 2018, the case had stalled largely on account of Mr. Turaki's absence in court. In other legal matters, a Federal High Court sitting in Yola has nullified the All Progressives Congress primary that produced Senator Aishatu Binani as the party's governorship candidate for Adamawa State. The court declared that there will be no governorship candidate for the APC in the state for the 2023 elections. Mr. Nuhu Ribadu, who came second during the primary, had dragged Senator Binani, the APC and INEC before the High Court, seeking the nullification of the primary election conducted on May the 27th, 2022, citing vote buying, overvoting and illegal delegates list. In a judgment delivered by Justice Abdulaziz Anka, the court declares that its verdict is based on substantial evidence on non-compliance with the party guidelines and that of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The court, however, held that both petitioner and defendant are free to appeal the ruling. It's a relief at last for students of Nigerian public universities as the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, today announced the suspension of its strike, which has lasted for 8 months. A statement by the president of ASU, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, explains that the which was taken after a meeting of the union's National Executive Committee in Abuja, followed the intervention of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, and other well-meaning Nigerians. According to him, the National Executive Committee reviewed all the developments since ASUU declared the indefinite strike August 29 this year, including the various interventions, the ruling of the National Industrial Court and that of the Appeal Court, which ordered them to return to work and resolved to suspend the action. On February 14 this year, ASUU embarked on a 2-week warning strike. That warning strike snowballed into an indefinite action by the end of August and lasted till the early hours of October 14, when the lecturers announced the suspension of their action. And now the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, has hailed the decision by ASUU to call off its industrial action. Mr. Gbajabiamila, who had intervened in the negotiations with the lecturers, has been hailed by the Nigerian Labour Congress for his role in getting the body to suspend the strike. He also notes that the suspension does not mean all issues have been resolved, as he's urging the government not to rest on its oars, but make this a call to action on the future of public tertiary institutions in the country. And while the 8-month industrial action lasted, academic activities came to a halt in many public universities in Nigeria. After several failed attempts to resolve the impasse, the Ministry of Labour and Employment referred the matter to the National Industrial Court, an option that still did not find an immediate solution to the problem. Our next report takes us through the long walk to the resolution of the impasse.
It was February 14 this year when the Academic Staff Union of Universities declared a 4-week warning strike in protest against the federal government. The striking university lecturers are demanding, among other things, the payment of all earned allowances, funding for university infrastructure, as well as the operationalization of the University Transparency and Accountability System, UTAS, which is a platform designed by lecturers for the payment of their salaries. The initial 4 weeks warning strike metamorphosed into an indefinite strike by the end of August 2022, after rolling over the warning strike several times. After several failed attempts to resolve the impasse, including efforts by the Ministry of Labour and Employment, the Ministry of Education, and the Professor Nimi Briggs Committee, President Muhammadu Buhari again in August directed the Minister of Education and the Minister of Labour and Employment to end the strike within 2 weeks. That was according to the Minister of Labour, Chris Ngige. Unable to end the strike at a round table, the federal government then referred the matter to the National Industrial Court for arbitration. After 3 adjournments, the National Industrial Court on Wednesday, 21st September 2022, ordered ASUU to suspend the strike and resume negotiations with the federal government. ASUU appealed to judgment while the government proceeded to register 2 new unions in the university system, namely the National Association of Medical and Dental Academics, NAMDA, and the Congress of Nigerian University Academics, CONUA.
Contrary to the Trade Union Act, which provides that there shall be only one trade union in any sector of the economy, the government, through the Ministry of Labour, is going on the path of war, which cannot be justified under the law.
We are not spoilers in any way. We are interested parties in the development of educational system in Nigeria because we are lecturers and we did not subscribe to ASUU's method of tackling these problems in the Nigerian universities. That is why we formed our own group, and luckily for us, federal government yesterday has granted us our registration.
When the hearing of the appeal started, the justices of the appeal court urged the parties to have an out-of-court settlement, but that did not work out, and the court rejected the appeal by ASUU.
What has happened is that the Honorable Court agreed with our submission that the appellant the Academic Staff Union of Universities, through their council, had approached the Court of Appeal with dirty hands of disobedience of the court. So the Honorable Court granted them a conditional leave to appeal, provided today they must obey the order of the National Industrial Court made on the 21st of September, ordering them to return to classroom.
Exactly 1 week after the ruling of the appeal court, the striking university lecturers announced the suspension of the 8-month-old industrial action which brought academic activities in public universities to a halt.
In part two, after the break, National Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Iyorchia Ayu, denies allegations made against him by the River State Governor, Nyesom Wike. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. National Security Council reiterates stance that appropriate action will be taken on appeal court's decision to discharge IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu, direct intensive investigation into illegal activities in the nation's oil sector. Students heave a sigh of relief as Academic Staff Union of Universities suspend its 8-month strike conditionally. Lecturers set to resume work Monday, October 17. River State Governor Nyesom Wike raises fresh allegations of corruption against National Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Iyorchia Ayu, who in turn denies collecting monies for himself. A new report suggests Vladimir Putin could be open to negotiations and withdrawing of some troops from Ukraine. To politics now. River State Governor Nyesom Wike has raised fresh corruption allegations against the national chairman of his party, the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Iyorchia Ayu. It says the national chairman collected the sum of 100 million naira from an unnamed governor, threatening to reveal more if pushed to the wall. Governor Wike, who was speaking during a media chat in Port Harcourt, had earlier accused Senator Ayu of collecting 1 billion naira from a presidential aspirant without remitting same to the party.
Good morning, Your Excellency.
For the second time in 3 weeks, the River State Governor, Nyesom Wike, is addressing issues on governance and national politics, especially the state of affairs in the People's Democratic Party. Despite the efforts by some chieftains of the party to resolve the rift, Governor Wike says his relationship with the leadership of the party has not improved.
Let Ayu say he did not collect 1 billion. In fact, let me also tell you, Ayu collected 100 million naira from a governor and was going to renovate our Democratic Institute. And then he went back to NWC and took the same 100 million naira of doing the work. If not for the love of this party, if we release what we have, if we did what we have, Ayu's children will go to him and say we are no longer our children.
The River State House of Assembly recently de-recognized Celestine Omehia as former governor, fueling insinuations of victimization for supporting the PDP presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, but Governor Wike dismisses the accusation.
If I was to show vindictiveness, I was to do it in that 2015. Because this was a man who dissolved the councils simply because we took advertorial, congratulating someone for his birthday, who was his rival, who was his enemy. And then I suffered it. I did not complete my tenure as the chairman of local government. 7 months. If I was to show vindictiveness, as at 2015, that when I was to show vindictiveness.
On his recent appointment of 50,000 special assistants, the River State Governor views it as a way of alleviating poverty.
It is part of what we promised our people. If the next government coming cannot go with it, it's an appointment. The government can look, I can't deal with this. right? The government is not time to continue with it. But for me, information is key. Remember, this 319th wasn't the first time I appointed him. It was that last year. The 14 local government liaisons, is it the first time? People just forget easily.
The governor also explains his intervention in the current flooding ravaging parts of the state.
They are working with the council chairman of these 3 local governments because they are the ones that will know the communities that are fully affected. And from there also, as in terms of expenditure, in terms of making sure that these things get to the communities.
As the 2023 general elections draw near, Governor Wike insists his achievement will ensure victory for the PDP in the state.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, the Board of Trustees of the People's Democratic Party has thrown its support behind the national chairman of the party, Mr. Iyorchia Ayu, maintaining that he should stay in office until the party wins the 2023 general elections. The chairman of the PDP Board of Trustees, Senator Adolphus Wagbara, stated the position of the board after a meeting to review the findings from its conciliation committee in Abuja. Meanwhile, Mr. Ayu has denied the allegations by the governor of Rivers State, who accused him of collecting 1 billion naira and another 100 million naira in 2 tranches.
The leadership of the People's Democratic Party's Board of Trustees, the national chairman of the party, and some other members of the National Working Committee are attending this meeting to review the reports of the Conciliation Committee of the PDP Board of Trustees. The meeting is expected to come up with a position on the ongoing face-off between 5 of the governors elected under the platform of the party and other members who are calling for the resignation of the national chairman.
In spite of the perceived crisis in the party,
in their separate opening remarks, both the national chairman and the chairman of the Board of Trustees underscored the importance of unity and urged members to be willing to make sacrifices for the party.
This election is for PDP to win, and it's also for us to lose if we are not united. So the aim of this special committee primarily was to find a way of bringing everybody under this, our big umbrella.
we have only one desire, and that desire is that our party returns to power. And since we came in about 10 months ago, that's all we have been doing.
The meeting then went into closed doors. After about 4 hours of deliberations, the Board of Trustees arrives at some resolutions.
The following resolutions were reached. 1, to urge on the national chairman as an eminent leader to give a firm assurance that he will resign his position after the 2023 elections.
Away from the decision of the PDP Board of Trustees, the party national chairman clears the air on the allegations of corruption leveled against him by the Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike.
On today's allegation, luckily, I had fully briefed the BOT that one of our governors made a contribution of 100 million to the revival of the People's Democratic Institute, which was housed in the Porter cabin. I never collected 1 billion from anybody, and the 100 million that was donated by one of the governors was judiciously used for the purpose that it was given.
The PDP has been enmeshed in an internal crisis, with some members, including Governor of Rivers State, calling for the resignation of the national chairman, a situation that has defied several reconciliation efforts.
Staying with political matters, the coalition of united political parties has petitioned the UK High Commission, the US as well as EU embassies over alleged plans to compromise the voter register and sack the chairman of INEC, in addition to deactivating the BVAS from the INEC server. The group is calling for a global hunt down of the conspirators and their families, with visa bans, assets freeze and arrest where possible. It also wants all the foreign missions to keep a closer eye on Nigeria's transition process, maintaining that the alleged plot to destabilize INEC can throw Nigeria into a crisis, which is capable of truncating the nation's democracy. Addressing newsmen after the round of visits, the spokesperson of the coalition, Ms. Ekenga Oguchinyere, explains the group's action is aimed at engendering peaceful, acceptable, credible, free and fair election, in addition to promoting national security, principles of participatory democracy and the rule of law. Still ahead on the news at 10, IMF cuts Sub-Saharan Africa's 2022 GDP growth forecast to 3.6%, says Nigeria and 4 other countries on the continent may need to raise interest rates for economic stability. That's on Business News. Do join us again. Welcome back. And to the fight against corruption, the government needs to consider a more refined approach to get better results. This is the view of criminal investigator and international lawyer, Mr. Ibrahim Pan. He believes tightening loose ends by putting preventive measures in place as opposed to waiting to prosecute culprits will reduce the propensity to embezzle public funds.
Coming at anti-corruption work from a retributive justice perspective, investigating and trying corrupt people, is only one small part of the equation. We've got to strengthen our preventative capacity. What does that mean? So, if you pan back to the administration between 1999 and 2007, there was a big effort to institute what they call due process. What that is targeted at is reducing the occurrence of corruption at the procurement level, because a lot of the grand corruption really comes from inflation of contracts, from over-invoicing, from all of the negative practices that go into government expenditure. That's where you've got to tackle the problem. You've got to plug those leakages in order to, at the front end, deal with the loss of revenues. The National Orientation Agency is part of this whole idea of moral suasion. You've got to tell people it's immoral to be corrupt. Everybody knows that. That's not going to achieve what you want. Everybody knows it's illegal to steal, but you've got to be... So in criminal justice policy, which is what I studied at the London School of Economics, what you try to do is remove the incentives and introduce disincentives. So you've got to make it more difficult for people to commit those offenses, because corruption is a crime of opportunity. So if you deal with the opportunities, you're more likely to achieve greater success.
To catch the full interview with Mr. Ibrahim Pan, do watch Diaspora Network on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. In other stories, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, says the federal government remains committed to policies and reform efforts that are geared towards economic diversification and improved productivity. Speaking at the closing ceremony of the inaugural Gombe State Investment Summit in Gombe, Professor Osinbajo applauds the state for becoming a reference point for business climate reforms.
It is the inaugural investment summit of Gombe State as the business community, private sector players and international investors converged on the state capital for the epoch-making event. With huge optimism and the firm belief in the vast economic potential of Gombe State, the state governor, Muhammadu Yahya, highlights the essence of the maiden Gombe Investment Summit tagged Go Invest 2022.
Based on the understanding and the dynamics that we were able to accomplish, Gombe State was able to come first in terms of providing the enabling business environment that is a basis on which industry, commerce, and commercialization will continue.
The presidency extolled the administrative ingenuity of the governor and his cabinet for churning out realistic policies and plans that earned the state top spot in the ease of doing business in the country.
I'm delighted that we are beginning to harvest the first fruits of the plan. One of those is the remarkable feat of attaining the first position in the Sub-National Ease of Doing Business Baseline Survey Report of 2021.
Satisfied with the performance of Gombe State, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo restates the federal government's commitment to pursue economic diversification policies.
There is a clear impetus for all branches and levels of the Nigerian government, as well as the private sector, to deliver concrete, ambitious, and critical policy interventions in order to take full advantage of the opportunities for the economy and, by extension, the entire continent. That is why in the past 6 years, the federal government has aggressively pursued, under the Presidential Enabling Business Council initiatives, the creation of an environment that allows Nigerian businesses at every level to operate without the bottlenecks and drawbacks that have come to characterize their interface with agencies and regulators.
With the inaugural summit, Go Invest 2022, which is consistent with Gombe State's mission to create an enabling environment for sustainable prosperity, peace, cohesion, and an all-inclusive development for the people, the state is poised to take its investment drive to the next level.
And from the northeast to the northwestern part of the country, where as part of activities lined up for the 7th edition of the Kaduna Investment Summit, Governor Nasir El-Rufai has commissioned the newly built Galaxy Mall in the capital city. The governor describes the project as a vital contribution to improving the retail experience and expanding the options available for entertainment in the city centre.
The mall is the first of its kind in Kaduna.
The Galaxy Mall is a project conceived in 2015, shortly after the Governor Nasir El-Rufai administration came on board.
Development in Kaduna.
With a timeline of 18 months for its completion, it, however, suffered delays as a result of some unforeseen factors, including the outbreak of COVID-19.
Thank you.
But with determination and commitment, the Galaxy Mall is now completed and ready for use.
And it gives me great pleasure. I consider it an honor, actually.
Governor Nasir El-Rufai, accompanied by his deputy, Dr. Hadiza Balarabe, the state's APC governorship candidate for next year's election, Senator Uba Sani, the former Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi, who is also the vice chairman of Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency, all arrived at the venue of the commissioning, located at the heart of the state capital.
The mall is also a testament to the ease of doing business reforms in the state.
Described as the first of its kind in northern Nigeria, some of the key partners in its execution believe it has the potential to change the landscape of the Nigerian retail market.
The success of Galaxy Mall signifies the importance of public-private partnerships, which are key to job and wealth creation, growth and development.
In China, there's a saying, if you want to be rich, you should build a road first. That proves that infrastructure plays a key role in economic development.
And just before the inauguration, Governor El-Rufai says it's a dream come true, believing it will provide a safe, pleasant, comfortable and all-year-round shopping experience for residents.
Having a decent mall in the city is a quality of life issue for us, giving people more options for shopping and relaxation. But a mall also expands economic opportunity for our farmers that will supply some of the groceries here, suppliers, sellers, and the workers that will be recruited to run the facilities that are here. And what is significant about Galaxy Mall is how cheap it has turned out to be. Because these young people delivered this project with dedication, with honesty, with integrity.
He then goes ahead to cut the tape, accompanied by some of the dignitaries who graced the occasion. Some company news now. Gree, a popular brand in the air conditioning business, has unveiled 4 new technology-driven products to the Nigerian market. The Vice President of CIG Group, Ben Ma, unveiled the wall-mounted G-Tech and Minty, the Kembe 2, which is a floor companion and Pula inverter. He says the 4 new products that are fast and easily maintained provides a comfortable experience for users.
Gree, a brand that is getting increasingly popular in the home appliances business, is yet again out with quality air conditioner products for its customers. With 30 years of professional production experience in home appliances, the company gives an insight on what it has in stock.
No, this is the great time for the new product launch, and also it's another important issue for all our business partners. We will move together, work together to achieve our target, to achieve our fortune.
Part of the landmark achievement is the launch of our new series, our new models into the Gree air conditioner market. Because as a company, we try to be very real with the needs of not just the dealers, not just the industry, as well as our end users.
Innovation. The G-Tech. 4 new products are unveiled. The G-Tech wall-mounted washable smart air conditioner. Here comes Kimber 2, the floor companion that saves on bills, has a smart regulator and user-safe cleaning. All of this is your air guard. Minty, which comes with a wall-mounted active air guard and Pula inverter fitted with inverter technology. Welcome to the future. We agree.
It theoretically removes 99.97% of dust, mold, bacteria, and every forms of impurity. And it keeps you safe. And that's why we have called it your air guard. For this kind of air condition called the G-Tech, you can do it yourself. 5-level washing that can be done by yourself.
Gree also welcomes new prospective dealers.
For you to become a dealer, all you need is to have 22,500 naira as capital that you can use to invest in this business. Once you have this kind of money, you would be able to invest as a dealer. In 6 months, you can have a compounding 30% profit on that money.
The future. Gree promises that customers will have more to look forward to, promising a comprehensive range of air conditioning solutions for its customers.
It's now time for business news. Here's Anne Wilder. Thank you, Millicent. Hello and welcome to Business News. We begin with the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, cutting the GDP growth forecast for sub-Saharan Africa by 0.2% to 3.6%. The latest projection made today by the IMF at its ongoing annual meetings represents a significant drop from the 4.7% expansion in 2021. According to the biannual regional economic outlook for the region, the IMF warns that 123 million people, and that's about 12% of sub-Saharan Africa's population, face acute food insecurity. Meanwhile, the International Finance Institution says that central banks in Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia, Malawi, and Zimbabwe may need to raise interest rates faster as they are walking the tightrope trying to curb inflation that is mostly out of their control, causing horrifying food insecurity. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group says that it will hold a presidential debate on economic policy on November the 15th. In a statement released today, the NESG explains that the debate, which is to serve as a launch pad to discuss towards inclusive and prosperous Nigeria, will be held in collaboration with the Nigerian Elections Debate Group. The NESG adds that its upcoming presidential debate seeks to create content that focuses on the state of the economy and address the citizens' concern, which will empower them to choose among the presidential candidates and other leadership positions scheduled for February polls. We head to Nigeria's stock market now. It ended Friday's trading session with positive sentiments, regaining 24 billion naira from the previous session's loss amidst buy interests and sell-off. Will Ibong tells us more.
Welcome to the stock market report. So surprise turnaround at the NGX as equities make an end of the week comeback. The bull rode the waves to victory, steering the all-share index to close slightly higher at 0.09%, with smooth recovery for volume and value after the rocky collision in yesterday's trading session. Now, banking stocks carried the victory flag with GTCO up 5.6%, while Nigerian breweries triggered the loss in the consumer goods index. The stock fell by 4.03%, shaving 1 naira 95 kobo off its share price. Now, over to the gainers chart. Honeywell is still leading in that position. It's still the undisputed winner as it held on to its leading position on that list, followed by Coronation and Sovereign Insurance. Equities had a topsy-turvy week, but still ended positive. And that's the stock market report. I'm Will Ibong. It's back to you.
And that's business news. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Have a wonderful weekend. It's back to you, Millicent. Thanks, Anne. President Vladimir Putin says there is no need for more massive strikes in Ukraine as the designated targets had been hit, claiming that his aim is not to destroy the country. This comes days after what is termed the heaviest bombardment of Ukraine since the war began 8 months ago. Here's Simon Pusey with more on this and other international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. A report has emerged claiming that Vladimir Putin is willing to enter into negotiations about a temporary peace deal with Ukraine. According to independent news site Meduza, the Russian president, seen here yesterday meeting Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, is willing to take part in discussions and could even withdraw his troops from the Kherson area. However, a number of conditions would be needed, including that Crimea is not part of the talks and that annexed Donbass territory remains under Russian control. It comes as the regional governor in Zaporizhia said a further 3 missiles had destroyed buildings in the city. Ukraine's president has marked the country's Defenders' Day holiday by promising victory over Russia and freedom for Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky commemorated fallen Ukrainian soldiers by holding a moment of silence next to the memorial wall at St. Michael's Cathedral in central Kyiv. He later thanked Ukraine's armed forces for defending their country and said everything that had been taken away from Ukraine would be returned. Beijing authorities have stepped up security and COVID controls in the Chinese capital for the 20th Communist Party Congress. It's after a rare and dramatic protest in Beijing that criticized President Xi Jinping had sparked an online hunt for the mystery protester's identity. Police were seen clearing away the banners he had mounted on Sertong Bridge in the Haidan district of Beijing, calling for an end to China's harsh zero-COVID policy and the overthrow of Mr. Xi. The once every 5-year event brings together 2,300 party members at the vast Great Hall of People on Tiananmen Square. Xi Jinping is set to clinch his 3rd 5-year stint in charge, a mandate that would secure his stature as the country's most powerful ruler since founding leader Mao Zedong. Communities in 3 Australian states have been ordered to evacuate as torrential rains bring major flooding. Parts of the country have received up to 4 times their average October rainfall in just 24 hours. At least 500 homes have been flooded, 1 person has died and another is missing as the disaster unfolds. Widespread flooding across Australia, driven by La Nina weather pattern, has killed more than 20 people this year. Here, dozens of horses being rescued. Local media reported about 200 stud horses were at risk of being washed away in the rural Victorian town of Mangalore when a call for help from volunteers was put out. A group of senior Conservatives have decided to call publicly on Liz Truss to resign following the sacking of her Chancellor. Kwasi Kwarteng returned early from a trip to the United States. His 38 days in office makes him the second shortest serving UK Chancellor on record. He was later seen leaving Downing Street for the final time. It's after his so-called mini-budget caused the pound to hit record lows. He responded by letter to the Prime Minister accepting his dismissal. Jeremy Hunt, the former Health Secretary, will now take over as Chancellor of the Exchequer.
I met the former Chancellor earlier today. I was incredibly sorry to lose him. He is a great friend, and he shares my vision to set this country on the path to growth. Today, I have asked Jeremy Hunt to become the new Chancellor. He's one of the most experienced and widely respected government ministers and parliamentarians, and he shares my convictions and ambitions for our country.
And a Turkish opposition lawmaker has smashed his phone with a hammer during a speech in Parliament to protest against a proposed disinformation and social media bill. Burak Erbey, a member of the main opposition People's Republican Party, took out a hammer from a bag and started smashing the cell phone as he addressed the Parliament during the debate for the proposed bill. He said if the disinformation bill passes, people can break their phones and throw them away. Critics say the bill threatens free speech and could further harm journalism ahead of next year's elections. President Tayyip Erdogan's government says the legislation would address misinformation in the press and on social media. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. Nigeria's Flamingos have won their first game at the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup by beating New Zealand 4-0 in their second Group B game. The win takes Nigeria to 3 points from 2 games after losing their opening game to Germany on Tuesday. They will wrap up their group stage campaign against Chile next Monday, knowing that avoiding defeat in the match will secure passage to the quarterfinal. Now, 10 teams have been drawn into 3 groups for the Interconfederation playoffs, with the final 3 places in the 2023 Women's World Cup on the line. Portugal and Chile both have byes in the first round, with Portugal facing the winner of Cameroon and Thailand, while Chile faces either Senegal or Haiti in Group B. The playoff tournament will be held in New Zealand in February 2023. The winner of each group will advance to the Women's World Cup to be hosted in Australia and New Zealand next year. And it's Game, Set and Match on Sports News. Thank you for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. It's back to Millicent with the wrap of the news at 10.
Thank you, Victor. And the main news again. The National Security Council today reiterated its stance that appropriate action will be taken on the appeal court's decision to discharge IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu. The council also directed an intensive investigation of ongoing illegal activities in the nation's oil industry. Also today, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, suspended its 8-month industrial action, albeit conditionally, as lecturers set Monday, October 17th, to return to the classroom. That's your news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night and stay safe.